Hello Nigerians, hello Africans. Welcome to today's edition of the Geo Africa lesson. I trust everything is going all well with you. So today we're going to be looking at the affairs, the activities of the international communities in Africa, and to know how those activities define them. From your own perspective, what do you think? From all the affairs, the interferences, the interventions, the politics, the aids that the international communities and foreign countries are bringing into Africa and to your home country, how would you define them if you have good understanding of those activities? Well, before we go through this, I would like to review 4 important concepts of these activities so you'll be able to define clearly the implications and the impact and the consequences of the activities to us. I want you to make that decision. But before that, we just want to go through these 4 concepts. The first one is the theory of interest, which I also call the Chameleon theory. The second one is the abuse of the natural balance of fortune and misfortune, or victory and failure. The third one is socially engineered mindset founded on negative values, while the fourth is one I call global political terrorism against Africa. So by the time we go through these concepts, I will leave the decision for you. However, I want us to go through the ALI survey, the opinions and the views of the participants from the ALI survey. That's the African Liberation Initiative survey. You could also tell if those opinions, if you agree with those views, or if you have separate views. And after reviewing these concepts, at the end of it, we'll know what you're coming up with. So for the survey, they were asked to describe the activities of the foreign entities in Africa, looking at their aids, interventions, their politics, interferences, and so on and so forth. And first, looking at the foreign countries, the activities, how would they define those activities? 27% says that they are foes, African foes, by those activities, while 40% says they are friends, they are doing us well, and 33% are kind of on the fence, not too sure. They're not too familiar with the global politics and what could be the motives anyway. Then I also try to separate that of the foreign countries and the international communities as a whole, like the United Nations, World Bank, and the IMF. And the same question showed the similar pattern, which says 23% saying they are foes, 46% saying that they're friends, while 30% on the friends. So what could be your own opinion if you had to do the survey, or looking at what you have here? Does it represent what your views could be? Just to mention, I separated the views from Nigerians and other Africans just to see how similar the patterns and of the responses were. And this is what you have here. So 27% of Nigerians say they are our foes by those activities, 41% says they are friends, while 32% still on the fence. And when you look at the other Africans, by their own opinions, it's also a similar pattern. Most of them saying they are friends, as against 28% of them saying that they are foes. Okay? And we still have about 37% of them not too sure what could be the implications of those and consequences of those activities. Let's look at the concepts. The first one says the theory of interest, the Chameleon theory. I want you to understand something about interest. It's all about you. It's all about your gains, your benefits. Every single decision, just take a moment and think about it. Every decision you've ever taken, 99% of them, and even looking at the whole world, generally, even as a nation or communities, every interest, every policies, everything, whoever that is engineering or whoever that are engineering such policies and such decisions have their interests in mind. Every decision is engineered by self-interest. So for the fact you decide to go to school, the kind of school you want to go, you want to do your have higher advanced education, you are looking for a job, you want to get married, all of these about you, about me, whatever we've decided. And I make it 99.99%. No, it's a very rough estimate, but just to, it's not researched, it's not evidenced anyway, but just to tell you how serious and how high it could be. Then I leave other portion, maybe like the 0.1% or thereabout, or 1% or thereabout, for certain kind of decisions that people might have made that had nothing to do with them at all. People like the Abdullahi Abubakar that I mentioned that risked his life. A Muslim that risked his life for over 250 Christians. Such decisions, I give it to the 1% because they are extremely not about them. They are going to lose, in fact, to just put it that way. They were actually putting in their self, their life, their gains, anything for the benefit of others. So they are still such, but how many of them have we seen? The decisions that we take every day, do you think it has to do with yourself or with others? Think about it. The car you buy, the house you're looking for, every single thing. Even when they call meetings, you're going for the meetings to see how you can protect your own interest. So this is what I call the theory of self-interest. And I call it chameleon theory because people tend to change with environment, circumstances. When you are here, you see things differently. When you go there the other way around, you see it differently and you act differently. And however you see it and whatever you act upon has to do with how to protect your own interest. And this is what rules the whole world up to today. So when you see the chameleon, it changes color in its response to certain things just to favor it. You know, if you want safety or security, I want to be safe in the environment, it changes color. If there is change in temperature, it changes color. If it's looking for way to mate or be a friend, it changes color. It keeps changing color, not only for one thing, for several things. But it's its own survival instinct, trying to survive. So it's still about it. It's never about the environment. So when you see people say, this person is chameleon, or this person changes, it's all of us, depending on where you find yourself. So this is why even when you find yourself at the seat of leadership, you change your color. When you come to the people, become mixed with the community or with the lower social class, you change your perception. And this color is about the values. So people who are different are those who would not change color. They have one color, irrespective of any circumstance, irrespective of any environment, irrespective of any change. They maintain whom they are, they stand upon their values. But this is very, very uncommon in humans and in most of us. So I just picked that. Now I want to also look at the second one that says self-interest as a spectrum. So self-interest is a spectrum, meaning that it's a kind of a scale. You know, you can scale it from 0 to 10. So 10 means extremely self-interest, the one that we can define as selfish interest. Extremely selfish. From the scale of 0 to 10. So when you are 10, everything is all about you. Absolutely. You're not going to move an inch for some other person. It has to be you. Why the 0 scale at the end of the 0, the other extreme, has to do with other people. Extremely about others. People like Abdullahi Abubakar. But even for most of our soldiers, security forces, who could also put their lives on the line to save the country and to save the community. Such decisions, yes, I know that could be their job, that would be the value they add to the society. But in some extent, you know what it means to stand, that if anything happens to you, even in some societies that you're not even sure if they could take care of your family or you get any kind of benefits, but you put your life on the line. So those kind of decisions are on the 0, because 0 of you, what it means? 0 of you, 0%, it's all about other communities, it's all about other people around you, it's all about your neighborhood. Then if you look at that scale, people can fall in between. The one that falls on 5 could say, okay, I could be on 5, it's fair enough. Some part for me and some part for the community, people around me or for others. That is fair enough. So you can look at it that way. So everyone you fall into somewhere at some point on that scale. But I will tell you, majority of the people will fall between 5 and 10. Extremely about self. This is about self-interest. Then I want to talk to you about stakeholdership. When you hear stakeholders meeting or stakeholdership, what does it mean? It's a very productive strategy of trying to make people step out of their interest a bit to consider other people's interest in taking certain decisions. What do I mean? If you are left to say, for example, they want to put borehole in your community, on your street, and you ask you, where do you want this borehole to be located? Left for you, it will say close to your house, if not inside your house. Then if you ask some other person that's not within your premises, the person will also want the same borehole to be located or sited in his house. or close to his house. So everybody will be looking at distance, just easy reach, right? That's what we are talking about everybody looking at his own interest. But the stakeholders help to bring everybody's interest and make you to see, not just coming to you to ask you alone, what do you think about the siting or the location of the borehole? We are asking you to what do you think, but also you'll be there to hear other people's opinions towards the same benefits. So what do you think? So when you think about yours, you will hear other people's, and you now discover that if you take a decision as the way it is, these other people will definitely suffer. And they wouldn't want to suffer because they are also in that meeting to also try to bring in their own interest. So when you see people struggling for all their different communities, it will now give you, some little platform for consideration to say, okay, let's come to a common agreement. And the common agreement is that kind of agreement that would have your interest there and also have other people's, a bit of your interest and a bit of other people's interest. So everyone will now try to step out a bit from 10 on the scale of interest spectrum to about 5, so that you have part of yours and also have part of others. And in that case, everybody will come and have a central decision, a central point where their interests are considered. But in that case, it's not just about you. So people can find themselves in the scale of, and within that scale, just step out a bit at the 5 point, that's at the middle. And once you come as a community and make that decision, you will own that decision because your interest is there. It considers a bit of your interest and every other person. So that's when the community will own certain decision, and it becomes like what you call in a country national interest, community interest, group interest, because we all agree, we've come in terms with what we call a common interest for everyone that will benefit everyone and not one person taking it all. That is very productive strategy, and it's used a lot even in my profession in the public health, that we are bringing something to the community, you try to bring them on board and put them in front of everyone, they discuss it and come to a common agreement. And that is how national interests are formed against individual interests. Now I want to take you to what is called the politics, politics and democracy, the difference between these two. Now I will tell you that the politics that you know today is just about self. When you hear about self-interest that I've described earlier, politics is about self-interest, completely self-interest. Democracy is just the opposite. Democracy tries to thrive on the platform of stakeholdership, right? Why politics is all about. Now, I don't know how these two things come together. Whenever you mention democracy, think about politics. They shouldn't. They should be on the extreme completely, because they are not the same. So when you talk about politics, for example, if you're having some kind of discussions in your neighborhood or anywhere with your group, or something comes up that will benefit all, once you hear that, politics has taken over, they've started playing politics, what does it mean? It means they've started considering their individual interest against public interest. Individual interest, that's what I wouldn't know whatever Oxford dictionaries or other dictionaries may define it as, but looking at what we practice, in reality, politics is self-interest. So how do these two come together? What happens is that politics comes to hide behind democracy. And democracy is, of course, government of the people, by the people, for the people. So you put the people in front, while our own interest, the ulterior motive of whatever we are playing at the campaign, is behind the people. As soon as you use the people as the shield to get the power, get the money, get whatever you want, you detach yourself from the people, and that's when you know that it's all about the person. So that's when you see there is no policy, there will be hardly any kind of improvement that will come in Africa in terms of considering the people's interest or as national interest. It has to be just them. So the politics is just being smart, being intelligent enough to use democracy as a platform to get their individual interest. And that's how we play our own politics, and that's how we play our own democracy. So why democracy is looking at the stakeholdership, where everyone will come together and take a decision that would favor everyone, benefit everyone alike. Politics is different. It does it the other way around. And that is why I always want to put it this way, that politics operates in the confines of democracy. And that's just the summary. I wouldn't know how it's done elsewhere, but in Africa, operates in the confines of democracy. So we think we are practicing democracy, but in essence, individual interests.